Welcome back. The sustainable development in Africa and how can women reach to the sustainable development. We are going to discuss this issue over the phone with our dear guest, Dr. Naveen Nakhla, Business Administration Trainer and Human Mentor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Well, Dr. Nakhla, the sustainable development is a very important issue that Egypt is keen on. And also, there's a plan in the whole Africa for the sustainable development. So concerning women and sustainable development, what could you say in this issue?
Yes, first of all, let's make sure and highlight the importance of African women and the power and the empowerment of African women in general. African women are one of the most powered and empowered in the whole world. And we saw a lot of empowerment to the women in Africa in the last few years.
Yes.
Of course, the whole world is looking forward for the sustainable development goals and to reduce the poverty, health and mother and child health, all the goals of the SDGs. And the role of the women of Africa in the sustainable development is a very leading role. We saw a lot of, during the National Day of Women in Africa, we saw that they come together, the leaders, the women leaders of Africa, they come together, they put strategies together, they work together, national, continental, and global opportunity to recall and affirm the important role of African women in developing a strong African identity.
Yes.
They have shared values and goals and vision for the future, as well as the fact that women are major contributors towards achieving the comprehensive growth of Africa and the sustainable development agenda rooted in the vision of the African Union for a very integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. Women of Africa agreed, the leaders of African women, they agreed to join hands and create a common platform for solidarity and mobilization for the rights and freedoms of Africans and African women in making political decisions. A lot of union of African women, a lot of syndicates with African women, a lot of African women business women are getting together. I was just attending the annual meeting of the African Development Bank in Sharm el-Sheikh and the annual meeting of the African Trade and Export, the African Bank in Ghana. And on the side of the annual meeting, we had a lot of workshops and a lot of round tables. Attending these round tables lively, I really saw how African women, the leaders of Africa, how strong they are and how powerful they are, how educated they are. You're talking about 54 countries of Africa leaders, women leaders, getting together and putting real goals and real strategies and real visions. This is real success, and this is the real union of African women and the real power of African women. And I want to tell you, a lot of women from Egypt were attending these round tables and these conferences and putting the strategies and the vision together.
Yes, also, Dr. Nakhla, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was the president of the African Union, he was very keen on the women empowerment in Africa. What would you say about this, please?
Yes, our dear beloved President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is a real role model and a real leader for all African leaders. He's a role model in what he did in our country for African women. You see us leading in many roles, politically, economically, legally, in the decision-making of the country politics and country rules and regulations, and every leading role in Egypt, you find women. We have lovely ministers, Dr. Hala Said, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, Dr. Yasmin, Dr. Niveen Kabbaj, Niveen, the cultural minister. So he is a real role model for the empowerment of women and giving women full rights and closing the gap between women in leading their positions. Also, we saw His Excellency, the great empowerment for the young women and the youth, and a lot of programs, Egyptian programs, from all the ministries and all the places around Egypt, giving training, mentoring, incubators, assisting them to be business leaders, assisting them to be political leaders, assisting them to be even the young women. We saw the NTA, now the program of leaders, women leaders of Egypt, 3 different programs for women to lead in Egypt.
Yes.
On the African aspect, we saw that African women have played a very important role in building African society, and they have really enjoyed in the last few years privileged positions than others for a long time. Women of Africa credited for the establishment of a lot of agricultural society, and a lot of even the civilization are built on African women. A lot of scholarships for African women.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we spoke about the role of the state or of the authorities in women empowerment. So what is the role of women concerning the issue of sustainable development? What is the role of the African women in reaching the sustainable development goals? The women unions and the coordination between unions of women in Egypt and other countries in Africa.
Yes, with their union, with the African Women's Union, and get together in different, like I was telling you, the last 2 months, I have attended 3 big events considering the voice of women in Africa and the leaders in Africa for the Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of procedures, a lot of manuals, a lot of visions, a lot of strategies are being put and taken into consideration. A lot of social enterprises, a lot of social work also, a lot of economical empowerment for women in different places of Africa, very organized and very monitored, with clear KPIs and clear vision and clear objectives to make sure that the money spent and the time spent and the effort spent is highly efficient and highly calculated and monitored and also evaluated. We saw the Egyptian women have played an influential role in the Egyptian SDGs and the Egyptian Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes. Yes.
We saw our golden era for women of Egypt. Also, in all Africa, we in different countries. Let me say few, but I don't want to upset any country. But Rwanda is leading, Ghana is leading. Women of a lot of African countries, Namibia, you see a lot of prominent figures and leaders. I was attending in Ghana with Samia Nkrumah, the daughter of Fathia Nkrumah, the Egyptian leader
Yes.
who was married to the president of Ghana, and how influential she is in Ghana and in the sustainable development goals and sustainable development to the country. Getting together with a lot of Egyptian leaders who attended and get together in these round tables. Also, to make sure that women, the unity of African women together, to be powerful is also the empowering of women economically, which is very critical to make long-lasting change that includes adjustments to the social norms and the women's role in society in all across Africa.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Nakhla, how do you see the importance of education that paves way for women to get their rights? If we see, for example, in Egypt, the Egyptian women, since they started schools and education in 1919, after the revolution of 1919, the women after this, in the 50s and the 60s, were teaching at the university. Step by step, they started to be ministers, they started to be judges. So how do you see the relation or the importance of education in paving way for women to work and to be a role model for other African countries here in Egypt?
Of course, if you talk locally in Egypt or you talk on a bigger zoom out for all Africa, education is very important, not even for women, but for men, for youth, for everyone. Education is the key success factor for any country and the key success factor for any continent. And education of women in Egypt, we saw that we have bridged the gap. And we don't have any gender gap across all the dimensions in Egypt regarding women education or men education. We have bridged also the gap of gender gap across health dimensions, education, economic participation, political representation. And Egypt is very much aware and very much alert about bridging the gap between women and men in all these aspects and all these dimensions. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic and the wave of the macroeconomic challenges and the economical challenges we are facing now, women are keen, and the country and the political will are very keen on the education of the young girls. A lot of programs for incubators for women, as we mentioned the NTA, as we mentioned the Ministry of Technology and Communication, a lot of incubators, a lot of mentoring. I am one of the mentors for women entrepreneurs in Egypt. We have a lot of us very well trained and certified to mentor women in their first stages of businesses and startups, and encouraging them to go from the parallel economy and the parallel, the unofficial businesses of even handicrafts and small businesses that are unofficial. We are in a very big what you call a very big wave of supporting women of Egypt to go with their businesses to the legal channels and to register their businesses.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Naveen Nakhla, Business Administration Trainer and Human Mentor. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we watch now a report on the casual wear.